Hello, welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of Cal's Questions, which just sounds ridiculous, to be honest. This is the show we just talk to the most influential and up-and-coming stars of the TTRPG community. And as always, I'm joined by Paul, who's here. Would you like to say something, Paul, to kick off this wonderful season that we have ahead of us?
Hello. Yes, season 2. Who'd have thought it? Really excited to kick this off. Got a few new ideas. Hopefully, should have a new graphics surrounding us as well. And we have a guest on that, quite frankly, I am amazed agreed to be here. And both me and Callum have been such huge fans.
I want to introduce him. Him.
Go for it. Go for it. Sorry, I'm taking your thunder. Go for it.
No, this is Derrick from How Not to DM, and we are both big fans. The fact that he's agreed to come on this show of all shows to talk about stuff is kind of mind blowing. He's a really, really top interviewer. Interviewed some wonderful people such as B. Dave Walters and Johnny Stanton, Abyssal Brews, and so many others. So many great names, and he has become a great name in the community himself. Derrick, hello.
Hello, it's awesome to be on here with you two. I've watched you stream, I've listened to stuff you've done before, so I've heard your beautiful voices, seen your faces, but we've never actually had a proper chat like this, so this is the perfect time to do it.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming on and doing it. And just for people who don't know you, right, would you like to give a brief, slightly more detailed introduction of yourself?
Yeah, I am Derrick. I'm the host of a podcast called How Not to DM. It was an attempt at curing boredom mid-pandemic. Early 2021, I said to myself, I really like listening to actual plays. I like watching streams. I like listening to DMs and the cool things they do and picking up ideas for my own games from them. But, it'd be even better is if I could sit and chat with those people who I idolize and who I love and pick their brains on what they're doing and why. And then I also love asking about mistakes people make because I love trying to avoid them myself, right? And the more experience someone has, the more time they've been doing something, the more likely it is that they've run into issues before, but that we can all avoid if we have learned from them. So it started out as a blog. I just sent people a Google Doc with all of the questions and they were supposed to fill it out. But it's a bit like homework or revising, depending on what side of the ocean you live on. And I had a few of my friends do it and they were fine with it. But then I was like, I don't know if I send this to like bigger, more well-known people, if they would even fill this out and care about it. So a friend of mine named Cade lives also in Utah. He has a show called Knocked Prone. He was my first guest, but he suggested that we recorded our conversation. And then after recording it, I thought, all right, well, how hard is it to just publish this as a podcast? Turns out it's a lot of work, but I jumped in without thinking about how much work it was going to be. And here we are. So yeah, it's been a fun year and a few months now of time. I've gotten to talk to a lot of really cool people, like you said, Cal. Made a lot of really good friends as well, like you two gentlemen, and tons of other people out there. And it's just been a really good time, a good way to kind of connect with people from my hobby that aren't just my players in my home game. So yeah, been incredibly rewarding so far.
Yeah, we really enjoy listening to all your stuff. Paul, is there anything you want to say to our wonderful guest today?
I'm a really big fan. Hello.
Paul, you even advertised on my show a few times.
Yeah,
so
yes,
if anyone
I have.
Here doesn't know, Paul does really cool video editing stuff. He does graphic design. So like the video for the intro of this interview.
Let's make a film. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. No, the intro to this interview is done by him. It sounds like he's got a new one planned, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, if you ever are trying to do some promo stuff, then Paul's your guy.
Yes, thank you. But yeah, no, absolutely. Callum said it perfectly. We have been huge fans. I can't ask you who your favorite guest was because I'm not going to isolate you like that, and you wouldn't answer.
Thank you.
That's fair.
Thank you.
But can you tell me what your favorite answer has been from all of the guests you've
Ooh.
had. It might be difficult because you've done a lot of shows by this point, but
Paul.
I know it's a hard question.
No, it's a good question, but
It is a good question.
Yeah.
I am staunchly against favorites most of the time.
Yeah.
Favorite food, don't have one. Favorite movie, favorite musical artist, don't have them. But I can answer this question. I do have a favorite quote. It was B. Dave Walters. I asked him, it might have just been the end of the interview, hey, what advice do you have for people out there running games, kind of thing. But he summed it up very well. He talked about the Matt Mercer effect. He knows Matt Mercer. He's played with him. He knows the people in Critical Role fairly well. But he said it beautifully, where he said, you can't do what Matt Mercer, what Brennan Lee Mulligan, what Abria Iyengar, what all of these other really talented DMs can do. But guess what? They can't do what you do. They can't tell your stories. They don't have your experiences. And that was beautiful to me. And it was, it really, I don't know, whenever I'm feeling down or uninspired, or I feel like I'm just lacking creativity in my game or in whatever work I'm doing, I think about that and I think, you know what, but no one else can do what Derrick can do. No one has seen all the weird sci-fi movies that I've seen. No one has read all the books that I've read. No one has those ideas floating around in their head to implement and no one knows my players as well as I do, right? So I think that's probably the best piece of advice / quote or answer to a question I've gotten so far.
No, I completely agree. I would challenge Matt Mercer to deal with a sentient fridge, assless chaps, and all the other shenanigans my players get up to. I think it would be a fun episode to watch, Matt Mercer try and do that. But yeah, I remember that quote specifically, and I've heard people echo that about the Matt Mercer effect. I think it's spot on. It's absolutely right. I think Matt Mercer is the best Matt Mercer he can be. But I'm the best Ampersand that I can be. You're the best Derrick, Callum. We are all
whatever
the perfect.
I am.
Yeah, we are the perfect version of ourselves. Think of it this way, Callum. No player in the Critical Role could play Dodo nearly as good as you could.
It's true.
I beg to differ, but thank you. Yeah, that's it. With your show, then, I mean, it's about how not to DM. The clue's in the title, really. But it's if I was to turn that back on you now, that premise, and when it comes to podcasting, is there a thing that you learn perhaps a bit too late when it comes to making a podcast? Perhaps a how not to podcast thing, if you will.
Great question. Easy answer is audio quality. My first few episodes were recorded on either this laptop's mic or this headset. Not a great mic. The face you just made.
Oh, Jesus. That looks like the thing my work provided me 7 years ago when it was old.
I mean, it's JBL, so the audio, the sound quality is great. But mic quality is not there. I've had a few guests who, like Nathan from Reckless Attack, who knew he was going to make a podcast and did all this prep work, and made sure that it was going to sound good from the get-go. I, on the other hand, just was like, I guess this is a podcast because I recorded it,
That counts.
It does. And, I've learned a lot of things and it's turned out all right. But yeah, I've slowly upgraded my mics. I found a cheap Snowball on Facebook Marketplace, bought that, sounded way better. I bought this Yeti from Facebook Marketplace. It sounds better than the Snowball does. But this one was super cheap, less than half of MSRP as well. So
nice.
There's used stuff out there that you can buy that's really cheap if you're trying to get into a hobby. I guarantee you pawn shops or Facebook Marketplace or whatever is going to have some cheap gaming / streaming / that kind of stuff gear to get you started, so that you don't have to break the bank and spend, a big chunk of your paycheck to try something out. So yeah, that's probably the easiest answer is audio stuff.
I'm always quite surprised with microphones, or I have been recently, because I do have a very large microphone up here, and it looks really nice and fancy. This microphone is apparently a lot better than that. So
Yeah,
It is
I
good.
was like,
You sound
oh,
great.
yeah, like, because I game a lot and I talk to my friends, and when I got this, it took me a while to switch between the two, but they said, no, go back to that one. I was like, okay, fine.
Size doesn't matter, Paul.
Yeah,
Size does
that's
not
exactly
matter.
it. Apparently not. And it means I've got more space on my desk, so I'm quite pleased with that. But yeah, I think
Learning
you're
more
right.
things today.
Yeah. Good audio. When I started Cal's questions, and audio became more important compared to like the stream, where it's more about visuals and expressing.
Hmm.
I did. I looked into all the advice. I learned from all the podcasts like yours, Reckless Attacks, 2 weeks one shot. Listened to all of
Yeah.
those. And yeah, every single time someone got asked what's the most important thing about podcasting, audio. Don't even think
Yep.
about it. Audio. Get good audio. Doesn't matter about your content. That is the first thing people will hear and turn off to. So yeah, absolutely. Great question.
Yeah, I've gone back and added like a little 1 minute thing in the beginning of my show to say, hey, just so you know, it gets better. Yeah. So
Yeah. Can I take it way back then? I've got to ask the
Please.
classic question, which is, how did you get into TTRPGs in the first place?
yeah, I have a pretty fun origin story. I had some coworkers who were big into nerdy stuff. I had a coworker named Drew who would like speak like he was, in a Chaucer, an excerpt from Chaucer or something. Very, I don't know. He just liked to kind of ham it up. Um, and he and I were good friends, and he invited my brother and then me to come join in on a game. And I was like, oh man, like I've heard of D&D before, but I have no idea what it is. So I pulled up some YouTube videos. I watched like, what is it? Like, how does it work? I don't even remember who it was, but there were these two guys. It wasn't the dungeon dudes because I remember them distinctly, but there were these two guys who were just saying, you just kind of say what you want to do, and then the DM tells you whether it works or not, and you might roll some dice to see if it works. And I was kind of like, okay, that seems fairly straightforward. I pulled up one of those like character quizzes online where it's like, this 20 question quiz will tell you what race and class to play.
That's amazing.
So I settled on a dragonborn druid. I named him Madville. Madvich is like close to the Welsh word for lizard, and I thought I was being clever. So I kind of like made up it's not exactly the same, but I like added a few letters here and there to make it easier to pronounce with my American accent. And yeah, Dragonborn Druid. I showed up. I think it was a Curse of Strahd game. We played 2 or 3 sessions, but it kind of fizzled out from there. But then, since this was my coworker, my brother also working at the same company with us, we 3 said, well, let's just start playing it at work, at lunch. So 2 or 3 times a week, my brother got the Lost Mine of Phandelver starter kit, and we all sat down and we would just play for like hour segments a couple times a week. And that's really how I started playing. It was about midway through that campaign where, or that, the Lost Mine, like probably level 3 or 4, I thought, you know what, I could do this DMing thing, right? How hard can this be? So I opened up a Google Doc and I just start dumping out what's in my head. And I'm like, all right, we're going to, after we're done with this, I'll take over DMing, and everyone's going to go to a town further south on the coastline. And I called it Avarice with, actually. So another Wales call out there for you, Callum. And, I made a cult and a demon summoning ceremony, and they had to stop it, and that's my first adventure, and it was awesome. That's how I got into it.
Yeah, very nice, very nice.
That's cool. Lost Mines is a very good sort of introductory campaign. That's probably the one I would recommend to anyone looking to get into the current edition of D&D for sure. I don't know if
it's got everything.
That.
Yeah, I've never played it, but Callum, I know that is how you started off. I've only played one module, and it is Curse of Strahd, and like yours, it did fizzle out. I was really enjoying playing it. I loved the horror aspect and scaring the crap out of my players. I overly enjoyed that. But no, I've never played any other module. We're technically playing Descent into Avernus at the moment, very loosely, because I haven't picked up the book or read it. So I'm
I was
assuming
going to
it's right.
say I haven't recognized it yet.
No.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to spin it back on you then. Oh, I've been looking forward to this. Right. So, how not to DM? What is the thing that you have learnt from a mistake? I'll try to rephrase it differently for copyright issues because that is your thing. But
It's not copyrighted.
I know, I'm just messing. But yeah, is there something, a mistake that you've learnt from with your DMing?
Oh, where to begin? So many mistakes. I think funny mistakes would be giving players too powerful of magical items and too many magical items, just because it can totally break your game, and
Oh,
you've got to
yeah.
figure out ways around them.
Oh, yes.
An example I like is I gave my players a compass, and they just had to put a gold coin in it, and 3 times a day it would point to whatever they wanted it to point to. So like basically they could just locate anything or
Jesus.
anyone anywhere in the world, or at least on the same plane, right?
Yeah.
And they don't use it very much, which is really nice
Good.
because like they could just like break my game and go straight to the next
Yeah.
objective every time without me getting to throw stuff in the way. But yeah, don't give them the compass. That was just like my way of trying to railroad them a little bit.
Aw.
That's funny you should say that because I did the exact same thing pretty much. But if you played Ghost of Tsushima, I don't know if you have, they've got the wind that blows in that direction, and I had a druid who had a similar thing, but it was a plant or something that they would hold up and release, and it would glide towards the place they need to go to achieve
like a
their
divining
objective.
rod.
But that became a bit of a broken mechanic, very much the way yours has.
Yes.
Yeah,
You are
was there
far too nice to your players. I'm never giving them anything like that.
Yeah,
I totally
Yeah, just have a
am.
wayfinder, like an arrow above your head. Like, yeah, sure. No.
thought it'd be cool. I was playing a lot of Ghost of Tsushima at the time, so I thought, yeah, I'll just take that. Is there anything else, Derek?
Let's see.
I want to be more specific, if I may. Is because
Yes.
you do ask that question a lot on your podcast, as it's rightly named. Is there anything a guest has said that you then realise you did,
Oh, Paul, that's a
yeah.
great question.
It is.
and you didn't realise it was a mistake until they said it? I'm like, oh yeah, I've been doing that for like years.
So I recently talked with Mike Shea, who's known as Sly Flourish, and he mentioned the player versus DM mentality and how he kind of got stuck into that occasionally. And I have definitely fallen into that trap before, but I think like subconsciously I knew it was a bad thing. So, but I don't think I'd ever admitted it to myself. Like, you have done this, Derek. So yeah, getting to the point where like I've carefully built this monster, or I've spent all this time doing this thing, and then the players go and blow it up as they do, and I kind of not like consistently like have worked against my players or tried to punish them for things, but I do fall in the trap of like trying to beat them, even though like it's, as a DM, it's stupid. You could beat them easily, right? Like all I have to do is say, Vecna shows up and casts 10 meteor swarms, and like, everyone dies, and like that's the end, right? Like, what is the point of flexing your DM muscles if you can do anything? So, but yeah, occasionally like I'll get caught off guard and feel like a little frustrated or flustered, but I've definitely been improving on that in the past year or so, and focusing more on being on their side and just being the one telling or helping facilitate the storytelling, but being less worried about like my monsters getting enough punches in for it to feel worth it, or whatever. Yeah, I think that's probably the one that like after he said it, I was like, oh, I totally have done that, and that's something I need to work on. So yeah.
Very cool.
I gotta admit, I can relate to that, especially early on, like one of my earlier campaigns, I had this homebrew monster that had a really cool mechanic. If it hit the enemy or my players twice, and it had an X amount of hit points, and the players absolutely destroyed it. But I really wanted to show off this mechanic, And the players don't know what his hit points are, so I'll just increase them. And looking back, when I finish that session, I'm like, why? The players also don't know what the mechanic is. They don't need to see it. So after a while, this game up's like, fine, that monster dies. No one saw the cool mechanic. I don't even care. It's fine.
You can always transfer those things as well, later on. That's one of the things that do you know what? I'm just going to insert myself into your podcast here, Derek. I hope you don't mind. But one thing I learned, from DMing was, things can always happen later. You may have planned out this dungeon here, but it could be on the other side of the world if they go that way. Or if the monster you planned was supposed to go over there and they don't come across it, don't worry. It could be over there instead. That's the easiest solution to most things. But I'm going to sit back now. Paul, ask another question.
So I wanted
Paul's
to
questions.
It doesn't quite have the alliteration, but I want to talk, if I may, a little bit about your family, because your wife has actually appeared on your podcast, interviewing you at the end of season 1. And I know she's in one of your games. I don't stalk you. I swear to God, you do say all this on your podcast.
Yeah, all public information.
Yeah, right. So, is there a difference between, for you, playing with your family and playing with not your family? Is there a different method in how you do it? Or are you a different DM to one or the
other? My wife will shoot me those glances every once in a while, like, are you gonna kill off my character? Because guess what? That means I'm probably never playing again. And she's threatened me with that before. But to be very fair to myself and to her, I've never pulled any punches on her character or anybody else's character. I do, So my current group, it is on a summer hiatus, but I have 2 brothers and my wife in that group. And then 1 college roommate and 1 other friend. So people I know really well and have known for a few years. And then when we go on hiatus, we play mostly the same group of players, but one of the other players will take over the DM's role. So my brother is DMing this summer. Do I treat them differently, or are the games different? I haven't played a lot of games where I don't have a family member as part of it. So my first game, my brother was a player, right, for those few sessions in Strahd. My second game being Lost Mine, he was the DM. My third game, I was DMing stuff. Fourth game started off with just my wife and one of my brothers. And then the same brother who was DMing joined in after we were finished with the Lost Mine portion, since he'd already played through it. So I've played in a few games. I've played in 2 streams and another game during the pandemic where I didn't have any family members, but never DM'd for a group like that. So
hard to say. That's fair. In which case, I will give you a follow-up question. We can come back to that one if you want to later on. You said that you've played on stream a few times as guest spots or as regular players. Are you a different player on stream versus a home game? Because as a DM, I am a very different DM when I'm on stream versus when I'm not.
I've never streamed a game that I have run personally, so I'm sure it's very different, but I've never dealt with it before, and I'm always impressed by people who either record themselves and do podcasts or do streams and run games. That's something I have just never felt comfortable doing yet. I mean, maybe I'll do it someday, but the people who can do that, like yourself, I am always impressed. So I've played in 2 one-shots that were streamed. And I don't know. They were definitely more lighthearted, but I was playing with people I hadn't played with regularly before, so a lot of the jokes that you try to make, and stuff like that, it can be different. I know you chatted with Derrick from DM Studios about this kind of similar thing. Like, on stream you've got to be more narrative, and you've got to all really be sharp with your role play. And I don't know if I'm disciplined enough to be great at it yet. The 2 streamed games we did were fun, and I think I did okay. but yeah, it's tough, and you feel pressure that you don't when you're just rolling some dice with your friends.
Hmm.
That is kind of hard to deal with, and I mean, if you did it enough, you would get used to it. Like,
Yeah.
with Homebrew Havoc, you're doing great, both of you, and it's always fun to watch and
Thank you.
listen. Usually it's at work, so I have to have it like on a different screen, and
That's
it's like
fine.
covered up by other apps. But at least I hear what you're saying. But yeah, it's tough, and it's very different, and it's something I'm definitely not used to yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So cool. That's amazing. Bringing it back to the podcast side of things, then, is there someone that perhaps influenced you to start having your own interview show?
I didn't really know of any other existing interview shows when I started mine. I assumed there might be a few, but I was like, oh man, no one's doing this, right? Like, this will be great.
I'm unique in
So,
my thoughts. No one has thought of
yes.
this before.
Luckily, no one has done the mistakes angle
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
I've found yet. There's a ton of shows out there, and each kind of do their own thing. But yeah, no one was doing that, at least. Like, I didn't like totally copy somebody else.
Hmm.
But yeah, I didn't listen to any interview stuff before. I started it, so I didn't have a lot of influence. I just had my experience from other kinds of interviews type stuff that kind of bled into that. So I wrote for my university's newspaper for a bit. So I did a lot of interviews. It was mostly feature type articles, so just like stuff that's happening around town, interesting people, interesting events. And then I also did a sports blog with a couple of my college roommates, not the one I play with now, but some other ones.
Hmm.
And we covered local sports teams. We covered some university sports. And then we have a local football, soccer team here called Real Salt Lake. There's no king in Salt Lake. So not sure why they chose that name, but
It's cool.
uh, so we'd cover that team. We covered some of our local basketball team. We got a chance to go to the MLS, the Major League Soccer All-Star game where they played Tottenham Hotspur. And so I interviewed some Tottenham players, interviewed some of the MLS All Stars, like Kaká was there, David
Wow.
Villa. These would be bigger names for the older folks like ourselves who will remember them. But yeah, so I've interviewed lots of different kinds of people before, and that's kind of what made me think, yeah, I'm pretty good at interviewing. Like, I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at thinking up good questions. I'm good at researching to find what questions to ask. And so this naturally fits skills that I already have, as
Mhm.
opposed to like trying to stream or like do an actual play or something.
That's so cool.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I will.
Go on,
Sorry,
Paul.
Callum, go for it. Go for
Well, I was just going to make a little stupid comment, which was that I'm definitely going to make a soccer playing Kenku called Kaká. That's got to happen.
it.
So that's happening. Thank you for that inspiration.
That is
That's a great
amazing.
idea. I like it.
Yeah,
So,
that's
just
incredible.
on the back of the tail end of your answer there, then, you mentioned that you're good at research, you're good at finding questions to ask. How do you select someone you want on your podcast? And how much effort or what is your process in finding as much about them as you can? Because in the loveliest way, I already knew everything about you because I've listened to every episode, including the one that got released today. But
Yeah.
other people, I have to do research. So if you have any advice on that or just tell me your process, that would be great.
Yeah, so the research process, usually they're people I know because I've consumed their content before.
Mhm.
This is coming out mid-June, you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my guest next week, she goes by Scald of Shenanigans on Twitter,
Oh,
but she makes she makes
real well.
traps
Yeah.
and puzzle content.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I've actually bought some of her stuff and put her traps and puzzles in my game. And so that was like an obvious one to me. Like, hey,
Yeah.
she's really nice. She made some cool stuff that I've used in my game. And so I know about her thing already, but I'd love to kind of get to know more about her on the other side of things.
Yeah.
Or my first season, I had a couple of guests on from actual plays that I really loved. Josh Lorimer, he runs the Titans of Altera show, and he I loved that show, and that was one of the first kind of actual plays I listened to when I got into the hobby. And so I consumed all of his content already, so I knew everything about him, and it was easy to kind of write questions. So yeah, a lot of the guests are people I know a lot about, and therefore it's not hard to kind of think up stuff to ask them. And I've already done the research, because I've consumed their content. But if I'm maybe less familiar with them, or I've seen them around and want to ask them to be on my show, then I'll go check out the stuff they're making and see if I like it, see if I connect with it, and think of like interesting things I could ask that person about what they're making. So like an example is Sarah Thompson. She made the 5e combat wheelchair.
Amazing.
Right. I'd never chatted with her before. We weren't like friends or anything. But I think it was Neil from Fey Earth. He tagged me in a post she made where she said, "I'm getting done with a lot of work now, and so I'm open to scheduling some more podcast interviews." And he tagged me, and I was like, "All right, well, I should go check it out and see if it would be fun to have her on." So yeah, I had to do a lot more. I mean, I'd seen the combat wheelchair, like I'd heard of it, but in doing research, I learned a lot more. Like Hero Forge has wheelchair minis now, and she's got a character on the Idle Champions game, and stuff like that. And that stuff comes up from researching and kind of digging around and seeing what interesting stuff I can ask about.
Yeah, I strongly recommend that everyone listen to this, listens to that episode specifically, because I listened to that again recently, and it's just a really fascinating listen. In fact, listen to all of Derrick's podcasts. What you doing listening to this?
You don't have to. I want to emphasize that too. Like, I appreciate that you two listen to it all, and I listen to it all because I have to. But you can pick and choose people that sound interesting to you and skip the rest, and that is okay with me. It doesn't bother me in the slightest.
It's one of the things I really like about interview podcasts versus actual play podcasts. I can just skip an episode and not feel like I missed something, or I can just jump in and say, okay, the first 5 episodes have poor audio. I'm going to go in at number 6. That's fine. And I haven't missed everything so far. Because I really struggle to listen to actual plays because of that. I don't have 20,000 hours to dedicate to this. I listen to episodes at 1.2% speed while I walk my dogs, and I don't walk my dogs often enough. So, interview podcasts like yours is absolutely fantastic. Now, I do know, because apparently I've memorized everything you've ever said, that you have a list of people you wanted to have on your show. Again, this is all public knowledge, and if you have a special interest like I do, you'll remember. Is there anyone who you have on that list who you still don't think you are ready to interview? Either from a you're not big enough perspective, you're not good enough perspective, or they are just too much?
Well, let me pull it up and tell you.
Send it me. We can show it on screen. That'd be great.
Send it to you. Oh, very funny. Very funny. Let's see. People I'm not ready to chat with yet. I mean, there are a few on here who are just so gregarious and so well known that I would be afraid of not doing them justice, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would be afraid that my questions. Well, so this adds on to the research. Actually, this is interesting. If I'm going to interview someone who's done a lot of other interviews, I go listen to those interviews before I even prep my questions, so that I'm not asking them questions where they're going to tell the same story they've told on 5 other podcasts.
Yeah.
And it still happens from time to time, but I try to find questions that I can ask them that are going to get to things that I haven't heard them say before. Because if you're a fan of for instance, B. Dave Walters, you've heard him tell the same story 5 different times because you go and listen to all of his guest spots. And I tried to ask him stuff that would dig into different parts of his experience that wouldn't come up otherwise. But there are a handful of names who I would just be afraid of not doing them justice. Abria Iyengar, Brandon Sanderson is on my list. I don't know if either of you are fantasy book fans. He actually lives like 15 minutes from my front door, so maybe the local connection is good enough to like get him to pay attention.
Do like the first ever live How Not to DM, where it's just you two in the same room. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I guess I have my snowball. I could just dust it off and
Yeah.
do that. Matt Colville, Matt Mercer, Brennan Lee Mulligan, Jasmine Bular, probably. She's just like such an intense person that I'd be afraid of like saying something dumb and her calling me out and then me being
Aw.
like, well, I guess I'll just delete this. So like, see you later, So there's a handful who are like the wish list, and then there's some that are like on the I could reach out and I feel confident that I could have a good chat with them. So yeah,
excellent.
That's so cool. Go on,
So,
Paul. You're on a roll here.
I'm so
just leaving this to
sorry.
you.
I've been waiting to interview you ever since I listened to your first ever podcast. I'm so sorry, but
Paul, go for it, man. I'm loving listening to all of this.
Second season has Quickfire Chaos. Huge fan of that. Huge fan of the format and how you differentiate it depending on the guest.
Mm-hmm.
Some are more specific than others. How did you come up with that? And how much of a conversation do you have with your guest beforehand about what that is going to consist of?
Yeah, I'll answer the second part first. I send them a document, much like you sent me, with like the outline, hey, here's what you should know. Here are the questions I'm going to ask you. I probably should add more information on the Quickfire Chaos thing, because more than once the guests have been like, we're chatting before we record, and they're like, yeah, I did have just one question about this one. What is this? And I'm like, okay, yeah.
What are you on about?
Yeah. Like Mike Shea, Sly Flourish, she's like, I don't think we have time for that. And I was like, oh, no. It's just supposed to be like really quick, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just like, off the top of your head. Anyway, the idea came from my prep between season 1 and season 2. I had a gentleman reach out to me. His name's Steve Mullis.
Right.
He is on TTRPG stuff on Twitter occasionally. He actually, though, professionally produced and edited a bunch of NPR podcasts, our national public radio in the US. So kind of like, I guess you could say, like if it was like BBC podcasts or something, like it's on a national level, tons of people listen to it, like news or like, entertainment stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, he really, really talented and knowledgeable guy. He actually DM'd me and said, hey, I like your show. And I was like, you like my show? Like an actual professional who gets paid to edit like some of the most well-known and most listened to podcasts in the nation. That's incredible. And he said, yeah, I've been getting into D&D again. And if you ever have questions or you want to like chat and get some pointers, then I'm open. And I said, yes. So he and I got on a Discord call kind of like this. And he just gave me some compliments. And then I asked him a bunch of questions about like, what about this, how, what suggestions do you have? And so he had a few. He had a suggestion to, number one, add in some kind of mini game like that, something to break up the conversation. He suggested the clips at the end of the episode that tease the next episode.
Yes.
And then he had a couple of other pointers about like audio engineering stuff that I took to heart and kind of updated. So, but yeah, really good resource, really nice guy. I was just blown away that he would like take time out of his day, because he gets paid a lot hourly to edit that stuff.
So
and
nice.
like he just offered for free. And so that's where I got the idea. I said, okay, so you think it should be something like this? And I kind of like thought about it for a bit. And then I sent him like a little like snippet, like, what about this? Does this seem like it would make sense? And he said, yeah, that sounds fun. And you could kind of, change it for each guest and tweak it and make it interesting. So yeah, so cool that he reached out and he gave me a ton of good ideas. Season 2 has been so much fun and so different. And I don't want to say better, but I just, definitely leveled up because of the expertise that he gave me.
Yeah.
And so be forever grateful for that. But yeah, that's where Quickfire Chaos came from.
It's amazing. That advice is always so valuable. And I get advice from people in the TTRPG community, whether it's going to be something to do with game or podcasting or voice acting or comedy, whatever it is. There's always someone out there willing to give advice. To have some of that level come in and just drop a DM and drop some wisdom in there. That's so cool, man. I really, that's awesome.
I gotta admit, one of the more humbling or like self-realizing moments for me was when someone asked me my advice for the first time.
Yeah.
And a part of me was like, Why are you
What's
asking
that
me? I'm just this small creator, and I'm part of a group of content creators who we all just chat and share advice with and whatnot. And I put it on there and said, someone's just asked me my advice. Why? And someone said to me, like, who did you ask for advice when you first came into TTRPG? Like, I asked for the big people, the people who had over 1,000 followers, who had podcasts and streams. And like, you have all of those things now. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, they still shouldn't be
Welcome to the
asking me
big
because I
time,
don't know
Paul.
what I'm doing. Like, yeah, that's the thing. And I
Welcome to the
realized
big
after,
leagues.
I know. After that, I realized, like, because when I came in, I saw it was you, Abyssal Brews, Maps and Quests,
Mhm.
those sort of big names. And now it's horrifying that anybody could see me. Like, it is. Like, people see me as this big name. I'm like, no, I'm just making this up as I go along. I cannot shout out how much I do not know what I'm doing. But
Yeah, and I'm like his
But
pet.
you've got more experience than they do.
Yeah.
You've got stuff to share.
yeah,
So
I've made more mistakes than they have, so I can ward them off it. That's all it is. It's just I've made more
100%.
mistakes. Yeah.
Yep.
And yes,
100%.
Callum is just my pet, whose voice I
Yeah.
use on a regular basis.
Yeah, I've said it before. What he does, he just throws rocks at my window and says, "Come on, do a podcast." And I was like, "Yeah, all right."
It's your voice,
Fine.
man. I don't like my
Is he
own
playing
voice, so
Peter
I need to
Gabriel
do
on the
it.
boombox when
Yeah.
he's
Proper
outside your
80s
window?
movie style. Yeah, exactly that.
You
All of
love
that
it.
stuff happened. Whatever you can picture, it all happens. It's all true.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, if Callum doesn't mind me stealing this question, where do you see your podcast going? Do you have any plans for season 3, or where How Not to DM season 2 might end? Do you have an end in sight?
Yeah, I have all of season 2 recorded now. It's all in kind of post production stuff, editing, recording the ads and the intros and outros and stuff. So that's what I'm working on now. Then I have another break planned, probably a couple months here in the summer, before I'll start back up. I don't have an official start date decided yet. So that is pending, but season 2 is all recorded and done and ready to be published. Or not ready to be published. That's what we're working on now. Definitely have plans for season 3. Further than that, I don't know. I mean, guests will keep coming. I've got so many people I wanna chat with. It's just hard to get to. Like, in the first few weeks, or maybe a first couple months, I thought, what would be a good way is to collect like people who are interested, is to put out a Google form and have people fill it out about why they think they would be a good person to be on the show. And I got, like 70 responses, just so many. And like, this was when my show was quite small still, and I still had that many people, interested. Everyone wants to talk about the stuff that they love.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't fault them for that, but it made me take a step back, because I was like, there's no way, like, I would still be working on that list now, without getting to talk to any of the other people who I've wanted to. And so I had to kind of reevaluate with myself and say, you're going to have to limit it to people who you are like ecstatic to talk to. And even with that criteria, like, I still have, 50 people here on my list of like people who I'd really want to get on the mic, chatting with me. And that's at least like 2 more seasons worth. So, ideas keep coming, people keep coming. And so I don't have any plans of stopping as of yet. I may slow down slightly and do like kind of 2 seasons a year, but maybe do shorter seasons and have more time in between. But I haven't decided about that either. So, but yeah, season 3 definitely is coming. I have chatted with a handful of people who have confirmed for season 3, and a bunch more I'll be reaching out to soon. But yeah, that's the plan for the rest of this year anyway.
Amazing. That's so cool. And I will certainly be listening to all it. Paul, I understand that you have a new feature for this season that you would like to throw at Derrick. Whether you've informed Derrick about this prior to this, I don't know.
I have.
Take it away.
But yeah, so brand new for season 2, inspired actually by Quickfire Chaos in terms of a little mini game at the end. we have a standard array in front of us. Well, we don't, but we're going to pretend we do. And we have 6 characteristics of either a dungeon master or a player. Those characteristics are descriptive ability, improv, story, showmanship, combat, and rules knowledge. And what we are asking every guest this season is to either describe their real life stats or describe what they want from a dungeon master. It's entirely up to them. And yeah, so let's start off with your best stat, your 15. What are you putting in there, Derek?
Okay. This is very hard.
It's your stat block, isn't it?
I know.
If you were a D&D character or whatever.
You know what I should have done? I should have sent this to my players and let them decide and averaged it out, and then I wouldn't have to be on the spot here. That's what I should have done.
It would be interesting to see what you thought and what your players thought, and if there was a match.
Yeah. But at least it would have given me a place to start, because they could have given me it, and then I would have been like, no, I would rearrange these instead of just being like, I don't know.
Do you want to start with a dump stat first? Because that was the easiest one when I did this. I knew what I was dumping straight away.
Can I do point buy instead? No, I'm kidding.
No.
You can roll, but you can only use D4s.
Yeah.
I guess it would be easier to make the decision, though. Okay. For 15, for my highest stat, I am going to say... I'm going to say improv. You know what?
Okay.
I'm going to say improv. Purely because I think it's the thing that I have gotten way better at since starting. Like, it's the thing I've improved most in.
Mm-hmm.
From running a published adventure, Lost Mine, to like, a semi on rails adventure, to now it's like very much improv, and like whatever the players want is where the story is going to go, and I compensate for it. So yeah, I think that's the one I'm the best at, or have improved the most in. Yeah.
Cool.
For 14, I'm going to say showmanship. Love doing accents. Love doing or setting the scene with crazy interesting stuff. But yeah, I think I'm going to go 14 showmanship. 13, I'm going to say combat, because that's something that my players really enjoy, and it's something that I really enjoy prepping for and making interesting and fun. 12, I will say... Oh, shoot. I've painted myself into a corner.
This is where it gets difficult.
12, I will say, is rules knowledge, because I think I'm pretty good at that, but like middling.
Mm. So we've got story and descriptions for the last two.
Descriptions. I'm gonna move showmanship down.
Okay.
So 15 will be improv.
Right.
I'm gonna say 14. What did I say for 13?
Story, I think.
Okay.
I did add full context here.
I missed story. I hadn't done story yet. Right?
Okay.
It was story and rules knowledge or story and... Oh, okay. 15 is improv. 14, I'm going to say, is showmanship.
Okay.
13, I'm going to say, is descriptions.
Okay.
12 will be combat.
We have moved rules knowledge down, just so you know.
Yeah. 10, okay. I'll say rules knowledge, because that's average, right?
Yeah. 10 is average. Yeah.
And then what's my last thing? Did I just put descriptions last again?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you did.
You know what? I think that's fair.
So everyone knows, he
because
did get this 3 weeks ago. I haven't just sprung it
I
on
did.
him.
I did.
Yeah.
100%. I did. I read.
I
through the
understand you are
questions.
very busy, to be fair. That is
Busy
absolutely
man.
fine.
It's one of those things that'll
No.
change all the time as well.
Yeah.
As the day changes, you might find that you've just described something really, really well, and it would have been at the top.
Yeah.
But today, it's right at the bottom. But by the way,
Yeah.
this is who you're playing for the rest of your life. By the way,
Yeah.
and
All right.
anyone who wants to play as Derrick, we'll make this character sheet available.
Can you imagine that? All the other TTRPG creators. Actually, I did have an idea for Homebrew Havoc of having guests on, like at the end of each trio, but they play what they are in the TTRPG space. So you were going to be. I imagined all this, and you were going to be on it, Derrick, and be a reporter, and you were going to interview the players as like a reporter because they were arrested or something. And
I will do this.
Yeah,
I will do this.
And
except for it's smack dab in the middle of my workday.
Yeah,
I would love to do something like that. That sounds super fun.
And I had like a map maker on, and they were going to be an architect of the city. I had item creators on, and they were going to be like Indiana Jones type people discovering all these items.
Can I ask what I would be if I'm even invited?
Probably a radio host.
Really?
Yeah, but you are invited to Homebrew Havoc, Callum. You can turn up anytime you like. As a player, you are there.
That's true.
Yeah.
I just want to justify my 8 in descriptions here.
Okay, go for it. Is it because you forgot it every single time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, I think that my showmanship and my story and my improv make up for my lack of descriptions. I can be more descriptive with my story and my showmanship, and therefore make up for that 8.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Interestingly, so this is the first episode, but this is a second recording. We've just done one.
Right.
And I don't think I can reveal who the other guy was, but they put descriptions last as well as a dump stat. And their argument was they do the maps, they draw the maps and create the minis, so I don't need to describe them because they can physically see them, which is really interesting.
Fair.
Interestingly, I've put descriptions at the top. I think my descriptive language is quite good. I highlight all the sensors. My dump stat is rules knowledge because I don't think I've ever read a rule. I don't know what they are. I just make them up. I do too much homebrew content for me to have to know what the rules are.
To be fair, I get away with a lot of crap with you.
You do.
And honestly, if your players have played enough, then hopefully they just police themselves and you don't have to worry about it.
I always have a rule.
You think that?
Yeah, they do police themselves. It's just an archaic state of...
Yeah. Right. We are coming up to the hour mark now, and I could talk to Derrick for hours, but we do have to wrap up very, very shortly. That leaves me, and I know you've mentioned a few already, but I do this to everyone, and I put them on the spot, and I say, is there anyone you want to thank out there in the podcasting or TTRPG or anyone that's helped you get where you are today?
Yeah, I have a few. I'll try to keep it shorter than Oscars or Academy Awards lists here, but I'll start off with you two. Paul, you're a patron of mine, so that's huge. That helps me justify the time I'm spending. Also, helps me donate to some of the causes I do. But yeah, you two are always quick to hype up whatever I've done, and you're always making really interesting stuff, but also lifting other people up. And that, I think everyone notices that, right? Everyone can tell who is genuine and who's there to just, trample on people and climb on their backs to be a little bit taller. So I think, you two are awesome. And I've always enjoyed the stuff that you've done. Enjoyed our interactions as well. I'll thank the rest of my patrons. All really awesome. And thanks Steve Mullis, like I said, the guy who gave me all the advice for season 2. I think it's made it just that much better. I would thank anyone who's ever listened to my show. Just the fact that you took some of your time, even though people who listen to podcasts usually do other things while they listen. That's time you could be spending doing a lot of other things. And the fact that you're taking your time to consume something that I've put a lot of hard work and effort into means a lot to me. Yeah, so I think that covers it.
That's
Excellent.
amazing.
Just before we do our goodbyes, I know that some money, 10%, I think, of all the money you receive go towards a certain charity. Do you want to talk or shout out that charity specifically, just while you're here?
Yeah, so the charity is called Encircle. They are local to me in the state of Utah. They started off with one house and have been expanding to different cities throughout Utah. But basically, they started off by buying a house in a town just south of me and making it basically a center for LGBTQ plus youth to go. They have tons of cool after school programs. Um, they have people, they have counselors there on site. They do stuff like, make dinner and bake cookies and let you do your homework, tutoring, that kind of thing. But it's just a great place for kids who, especially in the state of Utah, can feel like they're not included. There's actually a big issue with kids and the suicide rates amongst LGBTQ plus kids in Utah is quite high. So they're doing really great work, making sure that these kids feel like they belong and they have a place to go, feel safe, and to interact with other people just like them, who are well adjusted and who are contributing members of the community, and kind of giving them a good example of what they can be too. So yeah, they started off with that house. They've bought a few others. Tim Cook from Apple, he's like one of their donors. The lead singer from Imagine Dragons. I think Brandon Flowers from The Killers. So those are kind of people who are local or like Las Vegas, Utah area kind of. So yeah, there's a bunch of tech companies too that kind of help contribute to it, and they're growing and they're expanding to other states and stuff too. But started out small, but yeah, they do really important work, especially in my community. And I do have some friends and stuff that that are part of the community, and it just, I don't know, it means a lot to me to know that I can help support kids who really need help and support, especially at the young age. They need to have acceptance and love in their life, and it's helping contribute to that.
Wow, that's amazing, man. That's so good, and we'll put the link to the charity below, of course. Yes, definitely check that out. That sounds like an amazing cause, and continue to shout that out and get the word out. That's fantastic.
Definitely.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can check out my link tree. I'm sure they'll throw that in the notes here on the video, but it's linktree.com/HN, the number 2DM. That's 5 characters. Most active on Twitter. So if you want to chat there, that's a great place to get a hold of me. Also, there's a Discord server with me and a couple of friends that's called The Fourth Culture. And you can find a couple of channels dedicated to How Not to DM there, and then a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, that's where you can find me and my work. My podcast is on most platforms. I publish it on YouTube as well. If you prefer to listen to stuff on YouTube, I know some people like to do that, so you can find them here also. But yeah, that's where you can find me. And yeah, if you want to chat, you have a question about a guest or anything else, hit me up. That's
amazing, Paul.
Hello, I am Paul, aka Ampersand. You can find me on Twitter and pretty much everywhere, Ampersand D20. All the links will be below to both Derrick, Callum, and myself down there. So if you want to chat to us or ask Derrick any more questions, because you can go down there and either leave a comment on the video, but please like and subscribe because it is season 2, and it'd be really cool if I got some serotonin every now and then. So yeah, please do that.
Yeah, and be sure to leave Derrick a review on his podcast.
Yes.
As well.
Oh, that would be great.
5 stars.
Yeah.
5 stars. Do that.
You can do it on Spotify now. You just go up and you click 5 stars. A review on Apple Podcasts would be great too. But yeah, make sure to check out Homebrew Havoc that these two are part of. Listen to the other Cal's Questions or watch the other Cal's Questions videos too while you're at it.
Oh, look at Derrick shouting me out. It's amazing.
It's like he's a professional.
I know. It's like he knows what Well, thank you for coming on this unprofessional podcast that we have here. But really appreciate it. You can find me at Seeley D&D on Twitter. You can find me, as Derrick has said, on Homebrew Havoc every Thursday with Paul. And you can go to seeleydd.com to find funny clips of various TTRPG shenanigans, voice acty things, and upcoming things. So yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you all for listening, and thanks to our wonderful first guest of season 2, Derrick from How Not to DM. Thank you very much for joining us.
Bye-bye,
Thanks so
everyone.
much for having me again. It's been a pleasure. Love you two guys and love everything you've done so far.
Thank you so much. Right, bye everyone.
Bye.
And we've not stopped recording because I need to stop recording in both places.